fed 11. By 1960, the number of people fed by each farmer had jumped to 26. In 1960, we produced 1,300,000,000 bushels of wheat, 4,300,000,000 bushels of corn, 14 million bales of cotton. Production on the American farm has tripled since 1940. But the very productivity of this most efficient farming system in the world has left us floundering like the sorcerer's apprentice in a flood of plenty. The man who has suffered most from the overproduction of the farm is the farmer. Forty-seven percent of our farms account for 92% of our farm production. These farms are large, mechanized, and efficient. Despite their growth, the vast majority remain family farms. This is one of them, the 1,000-acre farm of Lloyd Sellers in Rice County, Kansas. Sellers, with only one hired man, farms 7 times as much land as his grandfather did under the Homestead Act, and in the winter feeds 300 cattle. Over the past 20 years, Rice County has lost about 40 farms a year. Most of those that go under are small. They are taken over by farmers like Lloyd Sellers.
That we now have in this farmstead that we farm, there used to be 3 other farmsteads. And over the years, they have all been torn off. I helped tear down the buildings on 2 farmsteads, and my father tore down the buildings on 1 before I can remember. On one corner of our home place, there used to be a one-room schoolhouse. In fact, us kids went to that one-room schoolhouse. But as the schools got bigger and consolidated and merged, then this school ceased to be used as a school. So we got 1 acre more under the plow than it used to be.
Farmers like Lloyd Sellers make the most of each acre, despite government programs to control production.
A farmer out on this land has to try to make a living. So when his allotment is cut down to where he is not allowed to produce as many acres, then he tries everything he can think of to increase the production on the acres he is, still make a living. So he'll farm better, he'll summer fallow more. The summer fallow will really increase production. And then he will probably use more fertilizer, buy more commercial fertilizer, which will help keep the production up. In other words, keep about as many bushels as he will using anyway.
Farmers do not boost production to be contrary. They feel they are driven to it by chronically low prices. There is little profit on 1 bushel of wheat or milo, so they try to grow enough to profit from sheer volume. This is in direct competition with government efforts to raise prices by reducing acreage. Because farmers can grow more on each acre, attempts to limit production this way have failed. Now the government would like to control instead the bushels a farmer can market. But what farmers fear is a disastrous time lag between lower production and the day of higher prices. This big plow is one reason Lloyd Sellers and his hired man can farm 1,000 acres. The successful farm today is a big business in acres, in machinery, and investment. Contrary to a carefully nurtured stereotype, it usually is not a bottomless reservoir of Cadillacs. A 5-bottom plow costs $1,000. The tractor that pulls it costs $7,000. Sellers owns 3 tractors, 3 trucks, and a pickup, a $9,000 combine, and much more. His investment in equipment is at least $40,000. This winter, he is feeding cattle that cost $20,000. The land is worth at least $150,000. Yet, over the past 3 years, his net income has averaged only $7,500 a year. He lives comfortably, but he is not rich. This kind of farming foreshadows the future, and the ranks of economically qualified applicants are thinning out.
With the cost of machinery and equipment as it is today, if a young boy wanted to start in the farming business and didn't have a father or some relative or somebody that would go with him and give him some land to start on and help him get started with equipment and stock, it would be almost impossible for him to start.
The most important single factor in the immense productivity of the American farm is the Land Grant College, a unique American institution. This is Kansas State University in Manhattan, Kansas. It was founded just 100 years ago. ROTC training, written into the land grant law, is still a required course at Kansas State. But what was a college is now a university, complete with a cyclotron under construction. A few hundred yards from the cyclotron is an experimental plot of hybrid milo. Out of fields like this came the basis for our agricultural revolution. Our current project is hybrid wheat. Tentative results in the form of a few precious kernels have already been passed around to interested researchers. 25 grains of wheat went to the University of Nebraska. At the University of Nebraska, some research on hybrid wheat was already underway. Interest there quickened when the top expert at Kansas State was hired away by a commercial seed company. Space agencies are not the only victims of industry's technological piracy. A hybrid plant is a cross between two varieties. They are crossbred to encourage the best qualities of both. Hybrid corn, which boosted production 25%, was the accidental result of basic genetic research. Plant research consumes time. It can be accelerated by what are called growth chambers. A growing day under artificial sunlight is 18 hours, set on a timer. Here, scientists can grow 4 crops of spring wheat a year. It took farmers 20 years to realize the production advantages of hybrid corn. Now, most of our corn is hybrid. Hybrid milo, which you saw harvested on both the Whitaker and Sellers farms, was not introduced until 1957. Now, just 4 crops later, it comprises 95% of the milo planted. Hybrid wheat, if it works, will catch on even faster. At the present time, scientists can make hybrid wheat, but it will not reproduce itself. They are looking for some freak variety of grain that will lend itself to the development of reproduction. And they're certain it exists somewhere. Of course, hybrid wheat may be too expensive. It may not increase production. It may not have the adaptability researchers foresee. But on the other hand, it may. These few plants could foreshadow the bread of the next generation. At Hutchinson, Kansas, a grain elevator that stretches across the plain for half a mile. Each year, we produce enough wheat surplus to fill it 4 times over. Year by year, the unused surplus mounts, piling up storage charges. Surplus, the tarnished side of our agricultural miracle, is not a new problem. Since 1930, in every year we did not have a severe drought, a war, or a major war relief program, we have had surpluses. In no one year do they amount to more than 5% of any one crop. Yet added up, The cost of coping with them is $2.5 billion a year, an annual charge about the same as the total spent on development of the atomic bomb under the Manhattan Project. The farmer is the target of constant exhortation, not all of it unselfish. Ambitious politicians, editors with axes to grind, urge the farmer one day to spurn the federal farm programs and be a free farmer. The next day they scream at him to protest, to rise up, march on Washington about this or that phase of the federal program. He is pushed and pulled, admonished and harangued into schizophrenia, offered the best of two incompatible worlds, the no red tape, no document, no affidavit kind of free economy agriculture on the one hand, and the highest price supports guaranteed market maximum benefit kind of no risk agriculture on the other. Surpluses are even stored in military bases left over from World War II. They depress farm prices. They cost tax dollars. Perhaps worst of all, they represent the waste of unused food in a world where half the human race is undernourished. This is Lyons, Kansas, county seat of Rice County. Lyons is one of those farming communities which has prospered in these years of sweeping agricultural change. It has a population of 4,000. It is the kind of town where people go when they bypass the Dunlaps and the Westmorelands. Arnold Fankhauser, who runs a clothing store, knows why.
Really, we have about 7 or 8 towns that used to be competition here, in a sense, and sold the same items that we, in turn, sold here. While this town was a little larger, those towns actually did quite a bit of business. And I don't mean to disgrade them. They were more or less pickle barrels type stores, and they couldn't do any better because of their size. But actually, Lyons, Kansas was a little larger, and I would say that the pattern has changed in this way. They like to shop in a little better town.
Lyons has better stores, more of them, and good roads leading in from the 4 points of the compass. Also, it has been the county seat since 1876. Farmers in the aggregate are good consumers. Because of all their equipment, they use more petroleum than any other industry in the country and comprise one of the biggest consumers of steel and rubber. This is reflected in the economy of Lyons. Lyons has 4 grocery stores, 2 of them supermarkets. The car just pulling into the curb is driven by a farmer's wife. She drove 10 miles, bypassing 2 smaller towns closer to home, to shop here. Since fewer farmers grow a little of everything, their wives buy more food in the store, including meat, milk, and eggs. This farm wife's habits are changing, and so are those of the store. Supermarkets have begun to compete with drugstores as purveyors of everything under the sun. Since these items go in the grocery bill, we tend to think of them as part of the cost of food. Often they are not. Since 1949, food has risen less than most other items on the cost of living index. And the farmer's share from the cost of food has gone down 12%. We asked the shopper who had come 10 miles to let us read her grocery list. We found out 2 things. She spent more money than she meant to, and 35% of what she spent was on non-farm products. Aluminum foil, which costs 35 cents, is a non-farm product. About 1/4 of the price of ice cream goes back to the farmer. He gets 3.5 cents from a 25-cent loaf of bread. The farmer gets back about half the money we spend for bacon, about 82 cents on a steak costing $1.41. The return on butter is high, 56 cents for a 79-cent pound of butter. Soap powder is a non-farm product. So are all the paper tissues we buy and most of the plastics. Canned corn costs 45 cents. The farmer gets back a nickel. Grocery stores now sell ping pong balls. No sale for the farmer. The most expensive item of all, the impulse purchase of a long-playing record. Corny perhaps, but not from the farm. Overall, packaging and middleman costs are up. The farmer's share has gone down. That is Lyons, Kansas, a beneficiary of the agricultural revolution. Yet, even here, there is a shadow.
Well, of course, the opportunity for the young people here is not nearly as great as it used to be because our farm population, you see, is decreasing quite rapidly. The larger farmer is taking over what used to be 2 or 3 or 4 farmers. And the children that are raised on the farm, they don't have an opportunity to go back on the farm. And in order to keep those people here at home, we must have industry here to attract them if we're wanting to keep up the population. Or they don't have any other choice after they get out of school but to go to some factory or get a job elsewhere in some other part of the state or some other part of the nation.
One Lyons student who will return is Stephen Sellers. You met his father. Stephen, with a degree from Kansas State University, is coming back to farm. He wants most a farmer's independence.
I'll be my own boss. I can do anything I want to do, whenever I want to do it, however I want to do it. I have no restrictions. I can cover the whole half section with feedlots if I want to, or irrigate, or raise swine, anything I want to do. It's going to take a lot of planning and technology to make a go at farming nowadays. If I were going to be an average farmer, I don't think I'd go back because actually the average farmer has a rough road to hoe. But I believe with my training and hard work, I believe I can make a go of it. And that's what I love to do, so that's what I'm going to do.
Stephen Sellers will return to his father's farm. In this, he is more fortunate than most. The farm, by present standards, is large. The investment in expensive equipment has already been made. Yet, a generation ago, this farm was sufficient to earn a man a good living. Now, 160 acres will not bring Robert Whittaker enough income to justify the expense of efficient farming, which is the only kind with a chance of survival. Stephen Sellers will raise his children in this community. Now, Lyons is prosperous. It has taken over from the smaller villages that compass it. But Dunlap, too, was once prosperous. Stores stayed open until 1 o'clock on Saturday night, until the gasoline engine was harnessed to 4 wheels. Stephen Sellers is a college man. His chance of succeeding appears as good as that of any young farmer. But the very college which educated him has unleashed the knowledge of which surpluses are made. And these surpluses may loom darkly across most of his adult life. Change is the constant, and the pace is accelerating. All the Stephen Sellers, the new generation of farmers, must live with it. The alternative is this.
Farm bid 890 would go $900 go 9 now, put a 9, are you all through? All through, all done. All through. Hit him again. Would you go 9? Would you go 9? Would you go 9? Last call. Would you go 9? Want to hit him once more? One more. Sold out. 890.
We city people are selfishly maintaining a vast underappreciation of this fellow on the land. These 47% of our farmers who are providing us with the greatest cornucopia of plenty at the lowest prices in all history. We have him providing for us now at an average rate of 80 cents an hour for his dawn to dusk effort. It is not just charity or generosity or fairness which suggests that we might do better for him or by him, but plain economic self-interest and common sense. A banker has said that there is still enough national investment in the land that a depression could start there again. 80 cents an hour for a farmer's labor would appear to be flirting with it. In addition to the investment, we have observed that the farmer is the supreme consumer of everything we city people produce. He not only consumes in prodigious quantities the groceries, clothing, and gadgets which the rest of us produce, but on top of that, he is the buyer of farm machinery, fencing materials, lumber, paint, tools, and chemicals. If he goes under, so do machinery companies, steel mills, truck manufacturers, and chemical plants. And so do we. Before the turn of the century, American labor began solving its economic problem by collective bargaining. Collective marketing is a way out for the farmer. It has worked in the production of milk, fruits, and a few other commodities. But it hasn't yet been applied to grains and other farm produce because it's complex and unwieldy, and because the farmer himself is a rugged individualist, a stubborn, contrary, suspicious, and untrusting nonconformist. The only instrumentality thus far devised by the minds of men to represent the farmer, act as his counsel and agent, urge him to collective programs or production control, or act as his own policeman, is the United States Department of Agriculture. The farmer frequently assails it, we taxpayers don't like it, and the government itself would love nothing more than to hear the last of all such expedient measures as soil banks, price supports, and surpluses. But thus far, the farmer has been unable to bring himself to the final step, rationalization and firm control of his own production. Nor have we city people been of much help to him. We now control more power and influence in the Congress. A program which will save the farmer will probably originate there. When and if it does, we might bear in mind that he has been a pretty good provider for us, and we might understand that we're all in this together. If he is not prosperous, we're not going to be either for very long.